Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Arisaka. This is Battlefield 1. In today's weapon review, we're going to be taking a closer look at the Type 38 Arisaka, one of two new weapons available to the Scout class in the Turning Tides DLC. As per usual for weapon reviews, we're going to be looking at the unlock requirements of this weapon, the stats, the performance that it brings to the table, and of course, last but certainly not least, how to get the most out of this weapon when using it on the battlefield. Starting off then, as we always do with the unlock requirements, in order to unlock this weapon, you're going to have to get 25 counter-sniping kills, as well as Scout, 3 multi-kills. Now, likely the most difficult way to do this is to actually get collaterals with a single shot using one of these Scout weapons. A much easier way to do this is to use explosives available to the Scout class, grenades, or even to get into a tank or behemoth as Scout player. As long as you're not actually personally driving the tank and as such would be using a tanker kit, you will be able to get those multi-kills despite not using essentially Scout weaponry. You simply have to be the Scout class when getting the multi-kills for them to count. With that in mind, this weapon is relatively easy to unlock. Speaking then of the weapon, what stats can it bring to the table? Well, this sniper rifle comes with a sweet spot damage model, as all does, but a minimum damage of 80 and a maximum damage of 100. With that sweet spot damage model starting very early at 30 meters and ending quite soon already at 62, meaning that this weapon shares a similarity with the Martini Henry in that it starts at the same minimum distance for its sweet spot to be engaged. However, the Martini, of course, is a little bit more complicated when it comes to its sweet spot and also has a longer sweet spot. Within this range, however, you will be doing 100 damage, those 32 meters, and you will be able to get a one-shot kill on your enemies. Moving from the damage model to the fire rate of this weapon at 57 rounds per minute, it is slightly on the faster side, but nothing that you could categorize as abnormal. It comes with a decent muzzle velocity, yet not great, at 770 meters per second, as well as a lower drag coefficient on its bullet, meaning that this weapon will, despite of course its iron sights, still be able to hit targets at medium and long range, as long as of course your aim is good enough to hit those targets. When it comes to reload times, things are, as for all DLC weapons, a little bit more complicated and not quite as predictable. If you wish to reload a single bullet, it's going to take you just around 3 seconds, with each additional bullet after that taking you 2/3 of a second, or 0.66 continuous. And if you reload 4 or 5 bullets at the same time, in other words, you have either no bullets left or just 1 bullet left in your gun, you're actually going to get to reload an entire strip clip, meaning your reload time will be 3.9 seconds. Leaving reload to one side and moving over to the spread values of this weapon, it has of course the usual 0 spread value for aiming down sights while not moving. While aiming down sight and moving simultaneous, you'll be faced with a spread value of 1, and when hip firing this weapon, not that you should be doing that, you will be looking at a spread value of 4. With the stats then out of the way, let's start with the obvious. This is a close quarter, at least for the Scout class, in more general terms, medium range focused weapon, not to be used for extreme long range engagements. It's not to say that you can't use this weapon for extremely long range engagements. Thanks to its quite decent muzzle velocity, you will actually be able to hit your targets. It's just a lot more difficult, obviously, using an iron sight that has, of course, a maximum magnification of 2 versus using a scope or marksman sight with much higher levels of magnification available. This weapon focuses on an aggressive Scout player and is essentially a little bit of a hybrid between the SMLE MK3, likely specifically the infantry variant, given of course the iron sights, and the Martini Henry infantry. And I say this because the sweet spot starts at the same point as the Martini Henry does, albeit it does end slightly sooner, meaning that the sweet spot is a little bit more close medium range than it is with the SMLE MK3. Over the SMLE MK3, this weapon has an advantage in its fire rate, has a small advantage in its muzzle velocity, however a disadvantage of course in the magazine size, as well as the variants available, given that the Arisaka only comes in the one variant available, the iron sights infantry variant, whereas of course the SMLE comes in an infantry, carbine, and marksman variant to choose from. If you wish to use this weapon effectively, then you're going to have to be an aggressive Scout player, which is not necessarily as effective for your KD as it would be using something like a marksman or sniper variant at more medium long range in Battlefield 1. But it is likely more effective for your team. Being able to get a little bit more into the medium range close quarter areas, actually pushing points and objectives with your team, especially of course while using the spotting flare available to the Scout, means that you can actually help your team push up onto an objective, not just by killing people on the objective, but also by allowing your team to use the minimap to identify all targets within the vicinity of your spot flare once shot, of course. This means that you are a very effective member of a team if you wish to play Scout and use use one of these weapons. Whether or not this is the best close medium range weapon available to the Scout class is very difficult to say. There are, quite frankly, just simply so many. You're not only looking at competing here with the SMLA MK3 or the Martini Henry, you're also looking at weapons like the Vitali or other of the new weapons from the Turning Tide DLC that are all quite capable at the engagement distances that for Scout play you would consider to be a medium close range. In the end, you're going to have to try this weapon out. Frankly, what I can say, however, from my experience is that this weapon is an enjoyable weapon to use, and it is quite capable when used at its ideal engagement distance. What this weapon does have over some of the other weapons available to the Scout class for this more close quarter medium range focused engagement distance is flexibility, albeit simply having the iron sights, which do limit you from an aiming perspective, from a stat perspective, and if you've got a big enough screen, frankly, you will be able to shoot at targets at medium long range. Today's footage is a plentiful example of that, whereas weapons, for example, like the Martini Henry, don't have that option because their muzzle velocity, frankly, for anything but a stationary target is simply too low to reliably actually hit those. All in all said, I enjoyed using the Type 38 Arisaka. I think it's an effective weapon, but of course would love to hear your opinion on the matter. So leave that, as well as of course your usual video suggestions, down below in the comments, or hit me up with them on Twitter. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching, and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 1 video.